All right, welcome in. It is Conversation Monday, episode 2. This is the Charles Woodson, Michigan edition. It's fitting. As you guys can see, we actually have an in person guest. It's just myself and my good buddy, good friend. He's 2 days younger than me. We grew up together. It's Isiah Binstock. Isiah, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you, Grass?
Good, good. It was well, I mean, we have a lot of stories we could tell. Most of them probably are only allowed for XM radio and X-rated, and probably the best that they aren't recorded. But since Class B wrapped up yesterday, it was the last one as it's known as the two class system. I don't think they mentioned it enough on the broadcast, but that was it. And you were there. You had boots on the ground. We have experience, and you played a little bit more of it in the B than I did, but
Just a little bit.
yeah, just a little bit. But we don't have to bring that up. That can bring up some bad memories, doesn't
Yeah, it hurts a little bit.
it? But you were there. Central Cass 61, Shiloh 44, in a game that was a lot closer than what the score indicates. It was a it was a one score game, I believe, going into the fourth quarter, and then Central Cass is their suffocating defense, which they've did a pretty much all tournament and bailed them out of a lot of spots too. When especially when they felt like teams, whether it was Warwick or Des Lacs, had them on their heels, they found ways to get stops when they had to and use that to kind of propel their offense to get over the hump.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking about that Warwick game to start. I mean, Warwick had them on the ropes in the third quarter. They were up by 2, and then fourth quarter came around. I think they got a little gas. They didn't really have. I think they had one guy coming off the bench, but other than that, they only had their starting five, and you can kind of see like that they were getting a little. The juice wasn't flowing like it should have been, but Warwick had them on the ropes, and Central Cass was hurting a little bit, and they weren't hitting big shots until the fourth quarter. So I was kind of hoping Warwick would pull it off, the big Cinderella story, but they just couldn't hang on long enough.
Yeah, and they were a year. From what I've understood, is they were a year away, which is, I guess, it benefits them a little bit because they'll be in that Class B next year. They
Mhm.
won't have to go up against Four Winds because Four Winds will be hungry out for revenge.
Oh yeah.
But back to that first game, it was definitely a situation. I want to say Warwick was up like 6, and they forced a turnover, they had a chance to go up 8, and they turned the ball over, and that's kind of what gave Central Cast the juice
Yep.
to get over the hump and kind of propel them to a victory.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Central Cast too, they have the size over Warwick too. I think Warwick's biggest guy was like 6'3", 6'4", and Central Cast is 6'7" and 6'5" across the board, it seemed like. And then their guards too were 6 foot, and they were lanky. But yeah, I just thought that Central Cast overall, I mean, obviously they're the number one seed for a reason. I mean, you got all that size and then experience too a little bit on that in the front court. I mean, and then their big boy is a junior too, isn't he? So
Yep.
so I mean, they're still decently young. I mean, they'll have some returners that'll be good, and they'll be in the Class A next year, so that'll be fun to watch again.
Yeah, that Holzer was a stud. He was kind of their stud, and they didn't. I wouldn't say they had just one standout guy.
No,
They just had a bunch of role players that bought into their role, did their job, and it was proven that they knew how to win because every time it seemed like they were on the road, they didn't lose at all this year. They were 27-0, I think. I
yep,
think is what they finished with. And it showed that experience of just finding ways to win a bunch of different ways. It wasn't always going to be pretty, but they stuck with their plan and was able to grind it out.
yeah, and they did, and once they put a little full court pressure on it, then we're going to move to the championship game, but they put some full court pressure on and started doubling the ball on the other side of the court, and that it just looked like Shiloh couldn't handle it right away. They're starting to get a little antsy, and they couldn't move the ball up. And then once they passed it into Wanzik kind of towards the middle of the court, and he kind of didn't know what to do. It looked like he was stuck. He's stuck in mud, and he didn't know where to pass it. And Central Cast got in the passing lanes, and they picked off a few of those pretty easily.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wrote this down. Shiloh was 3 of 21 from the 3-point line
Ooh.
last night, and they shot. And they're like I said, they had suffocating defense. Central Cast forcing them to shoot 34% in the championship game,
Ooh.
and going in they were shooting a 59%.
Wow.
And they did a really good job on Wanzik and then Wilkinson, which is kind of how Shiloh likes to go through their offenses.
Right.
They like to work inside out and forcing Shiloh to take some unwanted threes
Hmm.
and just not giving them what they want. And Holzer played outstanding, 15 and 14. Their MVP was Sam Coppervig of the B.
Yep.
He had 14, and just like I said, just gritty guys, role players weren't afraid to do the dirty work, and when they got punched in the face, they were able to punch back.
Right, absolutely, yeah. And then you think about it too. I mean, the way that Shiloh, like you said, plays, they like to play inside out, and Wilkinson and Guanza couldn't really hit anything. I think just like sitting up in the stands and watching how many times Wilkinson missed like a bunny. I mean, it was like back to back to back.
They missed a lot of layups.
Yes, lots and lots of layups. And I mean, my dad, who doesn't say much, was sitting beside me. He's like, this is junior high basketball. I was like, yeah, it sure looks like it, doesn't it? Couldn't make anything.
No, I was kind of shocked by it. And to Shiloh's credit, where it felt like Central Cass was in control most of the game, but they fought back in the second half, and I believe I don't think they ever took the lead, but they had a couple of chances where they tied it, but just weren't able to score. And then in the end, yeah, they just kind of wore them down. They outscored Shiloh 22-8 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. And I think Shiloh brought one or two people off the bench, but it wasn't for very long. Their starters were in there almost the whole game. It was kind of like Warwick, like maybe had one or two guys off the bench, and that was about it.
Yeah, I think they had a couple of guys. I was looking at the stat sheet. It was like, I think they had two guys, and they probably logged a total of like 5 minutes outside of their starters.
Right.
So that's Class B basketball.
Yeah,
you're going to see a lot of teams and especially as the tournament goes on, you're going to see less guys playing. They're going to go with your more experienced guys. The coaches trust, but in the end, Central Cass must have had a few more that they trust. And credit to Central Cass too, because it seemed like going into the tournament, yeah, they were undefeated, but nobody was really believed in them or picked them to win it. Everybody was picking Beulah or Shiloh, or even like a Thompson team that lost to Delax in the first round. But that was also a really good game. The two nightcap games on Thursday were really good.
Yep.
The first two in the morning, the Shiloh Powers Lake game, that was over from the word go. The second game, Beulah Medina, that one was good for the first half, and then Beulah's defense just turned it on and started hitting some shots, and which was a great job by them. And they're young too. It's going to be a loaded region in I think it's Region 4 that it's going to be Shiloh, Trinity, Beulah, Hazen,
Watford
City.
Yep.
And then Heart River, they're splitting up. Actually, it is a year ahead.
Right. But back to that though too. I mean, like you're thinking about how stacked they were. I mean, going back to that Beulah game, I remember I think they were down by 2 at halftime. And then they came back, and then they're up by 12 at the end of the third quarter in that first round. And I was like, man, Beulah's better than this. I know they're better than this. And then I don't know what Brand did at halftime, but he got them back in it. And I mean, they just tore it up in that third quarter. I remember watching it on my laptop at school, and I was like, all right, let's see what happens. And yeah, Beulah just turned it on. I mean, Coach Brand's doing a heck of a job, man.
Yeah, and he got state North Class B Coach of the Year, which is well deserved, especially coming off a roster which there were a lot of question marks. He lost a 2,000-point scorer in his son Trey Brand, who's at Minot State, and then he lost, I believe, Trapper Skolsky was also a 1,000-point scorer. And that was supposed to be the year, and then they went cold. They went cold against Bowman in the regional, and then this year there wasn't much expectations, and he leads them to a third place finish at state.
Yep. Yeah, and they definitely could have been in that championship game. I mean, they had Shiloh too. I mean, they were down most of the game, but once that fourth quarter came around, they started doubling the ball again, and Shiloh couldn't handle that pressure. Well, Shiloh was being careless with the ball, and I thought usually Beulah wins those tight games. And when it went into overtime, I was like, oh yeah, Beulah's got to get them. You know what I mean? They had all the momentum from fourth quarter, and they're moving into overtime. And then, it just kind of fell apart at the end. But I mean, you got to give Beulah their props. They played really well, and they were just this close from going to the state championship and, competing against Central Cass.
Yeah, and I think, we did get a good game. It'd be curious to see how Beulah would have done against Central Cass in that size, because they really would have matched up well, I think, against Central Cass, because they also have a couple of big guys, and they can hit some shots from the outside. I don't think Beulah would have went 3 for 21 in the championship game, but it, it they got third, credit to them. And even that third place game was a good game.
It
That's
was.
usually
It
a
was.
game of like you're not really sure if one team, and we've seen it plenty of times where it's like, oh, we're not playing for anything.
Yep. Yep.
Where they just come out and go through the motions. Neither of these teams, you could tell, they both wanted to win, and it lived up to the battle that it was, and
Right.
you could tell both teams wanted it. Beulah had 5 guys that scored in double figures. They were led by O'Brien, went 4-4 from 3 and 6-9 from the field. And then Beauchamp, who was on the all-tournament team, had 10 points, 9 rebounds. And then the Larson brothers. The freshman starts over the senior. And then since you were at the game, you probably didn't see the interview, but the older brother was talking how happy he was for his brother. You could see that which is cool to see because he had a brother that was older than him that they didn't get to play in the state tournament. So they were very appreciative of the moment that they both got to play together in a state tournament.
Yeah, and it was unbelievable too. The older Larson boy, the way he had that and one in the fourth quarter, and that was kind of like the dagger for Beulah. I mean, for them to win it, that third place game. But yeah, he played really well too. And then of course the freshman. I mean, that guy's a dude right now. He's got a couple more years yet. I mean, that kid's going to be a stud by the time it's all said and done. You know what I mean? He's got a couple of years yet. I'm really impressed by them and Beauchamp too. I feel like every time he touched the ball around the arc, it was going in. Like every shot, and when he played against Shiloh, if he had any room, he's shooting it, it's going in. Like, I mean, if you don't get a hand in his face, he's making it. I was really impressed.
Well, and he did that against Trinity in the regular season where they were Trinity was up by 3 and he hits a shot to tie it. They go into overtime, they win. And then I believe he was the one that hit the game winner too.
Yep.
But yeah, well, and the younger Larson, he was only a freshman. He was a force on the football field. He's only going to get better.
Right.
But then going over to Des Lacs, that Carson Yale, animal. Minot State's getting a good one with him.
Oh my goodness.
And it was a cool story, which I thought Logan Campbell, who was doing the sideline reporting, did a really good job of talking about how he missed his entire junior year because he had a chip in his fibula. And a lot of kids, they could have sat, pouted, felt bad for themselves, sat on their butts, watched Netflix, played Call of Duty, drink Mountain Dew,
just
ate
like
Doritos.
I do every day. Yeah. Still do that.
You still do that. And but he didn't. He got himself into the weight room. He got himself stronger. You could tell that there were plays that he made were just a direct credit to the weight room, which the one against Thompson where he just threw a ball up, which Pride isn't going to make that. Right. He was a good shooter. He shot the ball well. He was just good down low in the post where he was able to just use his strength, the body, muscle around guys.
Right. And being 6'9" too helps. But yeah, he was unbelievable. Watching him in the third place game, him being a senior, I'm like, every time he touches the ball, he's shooting it. And pretty close to almost every time he touched the ball, he was pulling the trigger, which, good for him. I don't know what he finished with. I'm sure you could
34.
Tell me. 34. Okay. Yeah. I remember looking and telling my dad, I was like, I bet he's got about 26. And that was like in the fourth quarter. And he's like, oh, you do? Oh, you don't have that much. I'm like, who else scored? You know what I mean? Who else scored? They had that number 4. I think it was Eustace or whatever his name was.
Yeah,
he's a pretty good ball player too. I like
ball
him.
Handler.
Yep, they got a solid crew, and just looking at Carson Yale though. The guy's a baller. What Minot State's getting is unreal. I think they really stole him away from other people.
Yeah, well, they're getting really because they're getting War from Century.
Yep,
and then Trey Brandt from Beulah. I think he redshirted this year, so he'll be playing. It's definitely a talented squad up there in the Magic City.
Yeah, I think so too. And this is just rumor around the Class B, is what I was told, is that maybe Coach Brandt will be leaving and going up there and watching his son play. But if I'm Coach Brandt and I got this young kind of a group, and have some really good seniors next year, it'd be hard for me to leave. Yeah, to be honest,
for sure, especially that young class and there's a few juniors, but I think even they got a good number of freshmen and sophomores that are ready to go too. I did not know that's the rumor floating around.
That's the rumor. That's what I heard from a couple of people, but I don't. Obviously, we'll see as time goes, because you heard that last year too. This he had a really stacked crew this year, so maybe he'll leave. But I don't know. That's just what I was told around the Class B from a couple people, and I guess we'll find out and we'll see what happens. But it's hard to leave a good group like that when you took third and your best years maybe are still to come yet. So.
Yeah, and especially in an unknown that's going into Class A, where the top 2 teams from each region are going to make it.
Right.
So I guess in a sense you could say it's gotten a little bit easier.
Right.
But there is that challenge game too, which is kind of it's interesting. It's definitely going to provide some excitement and some intrigue, but it's also kind of like if you're a 4 seed playing a 1 seed and you beat them and then you lose in that championship game, third place team can challenge.
Yep.
It's like, well, we already beat you. We don't.
Yeah.
You know.
That's kind of an interesting thing. And I was talking to Josh Torgerson, and he was talking about how Montana already does a challenge game. And I never even like heard of anything like that before. But that is going to really shake some things up, though. I'm kind of excited for it at the same point, but it's going to be it's going to be a change. Just the 3-class system overall it's going to be a wild ride for a little while.
Yeah. Well, the 3 or that challenge game, it used to happen back like when our dads were playing in but that was to get 2 regionals.
Okay.
So there was that, and then now I mean, I'm glad I'm not coaching that where I have to deal with it or worry about it. But
right.
It'll definitely be fun. Be interesting to see that first Class B. I think there's going to be a lot of excitement. What was the atmosphere like in the Civics or Event Center?
Yeah, it was pretty wild actually. It wasn't as full as I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
I mean, the sides were full in the student sections. I thought maybe more of the Reds would be full up and behind the hoops. But it really wasn't like super full. It was a good crowd, and it was still electric, but it wasn't as full as I thought it was going to be for being the last like real Class B. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was still electric, and they turned the lights off, which we never get to see, so that was pretty cool. I loved doing that, and but yeah, it was good atmosphere.
Okay. Now was the so because they were saying on the broadcast on TV that it was sold out, but you could kind of see on the in the end or baselines in that upper deck region that it was there was definitely a handful of, or not a handful, there was a lot of red there.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
What was, as far as the crowd, was it pretty much 50-50, or was it mostly were people cheering more for Central Cass or Shiloh?
Surprisingly, I thought it was more 50-50. I thought it'd be more Central Cass, but we were kind of sitting more towards the Beulah section up and above them, and it was about 50-50, I would say. No, like usually you'd expect like a Central Cass, like to be more, hyped up and stuff, but not really. It felt like Shiloh had a lot of people there too. Across the way, across from the benches, it was like mostly Shiloh on the other side over there. Central Cass had their area, but mostly Shiloh fans.
Okay. And then I don't know if there's a whole lot of other Class B stuff we have. It was a good way to end it. I was glad that we got exciting games between the first round games, other than a couple, and then the semis, and then the championship game. It was good. It wasn't the 17 points that as far off as it suggests, but
yeah, it was a lot tighter than that through the whole game. It was just mostly the fourth quarter where Shiloh started to kind of run out of steam. But Central Cass, I mean, give it to them. Like you said, to be honest, watching all the games, when Central Cass was playing Warwick, I would have been like, if you'd have told me Central Cass was going to win the whole thing, I would have said there's no way. Losing to almost losing to Warwick, who didn't, had to play a playing game to get into regionals, and then almost losing to them, I was like, there's no way Central Cass is going to win. But they hung in there and they stuck it out.
Yeah, and that's really all it is at that point in the year, is just survive in advance. It doesn't have to be pretty, just get her done, and that's what they did. And that was kind of, I think, a calling cry for the their entire year of we're just going to find a way to get it done. I think they were challenged against Kindred in the region championship, found a way to pull it out,
and they did. And they kept doing it. They kept hanging in there. So credit to them. They did a great job.
Yeah, and it'll be exciting next year. No matter what, there's still some interesting things too, because I don't think they've decided if they're gonna, in this middle class, if they're gonna be going halves or quarters. There's talk of both right now, and then as far as shot clock, might go down to 30 seconds.
Okay.
They haven't really announced or said anything or anything that I've seen, but it will be interesting, because that, for those Class B schools, I think that's going to be an adjustment that they aren't aware of until they actually get out. That the extra 2 minutes at a game of a half, or extra 4 minutes, that makes a difference.
Absolutely, yeah. Because you think about Class A that's playing it right now, they do the halves, and I mean, they at least have enough kids, but like you think about those smaller schools that only have maybe 9 or 10 kids and only probably 7 or 6 are going to play. That wears down, and you're not getting media timeouts like you are in
Yeah.
state. You know what I mean? So it's going to wear them down, especially some of those kids that don't get a lot of playing time are going to have to come up and show up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at most Class B games; they're usually in that on a higher end, it's like a 50s, 60s game.
Right.
Where you look at Class A, it's more in 70s, 80s, and if you look at the Class A championship this year, it was
Right.
it was in the 90s.
Yeah, it was unreal. It was crazy. I mean, and Class A, they have that talent to do that, or maybe those Class B schools really don't, or the players to do it. So it'll be exciting to see. And if they move that shot clock to 30 seconds too, that's going to be a lot of up and down for those Class B schools that maybe like to grind out some of them games.
Yeah, well, especially in Class B too, you see that a little bit more where they're going to try to kind of grind the clock and
Right.
really work to get a better shot. Where Class A, you watch the championship game where it was just up and down, up
Right.
and down.
Right.
But it'll be interesting. It'll be exciting. People that aren't going to like it, but what do you do?
Right.
I mean, it doesn't make you any good to complain about it. Just adapt, like the saying in Moneyball, adapt or die.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It'll be interesting to see. I'm excited for it. And like, you can't please everybody. You never will. But at least with the 3-class system, maybe those smaller schools will get a better chance. That's what they're hoping for. So
That's what they're hoping for. We'll see. I think when I was looking at it, you could go into each region in that Class B and figure out who's going to win.
Right.
But that's why they play the games. You got to weed them out.
Right.
But,
Right. Few
but
and far between.
How's your NCAA bracket looking?
It's garbage.
It's garbage.
Once Princeton won the other day, it's done. I did finally make one, and I wasn't watching a ton of college basketball, and it's shot. I mean, if you look at everybody's, it's shot.
Yeah, the Princeton one, and they're going to the Sweet 16 too.
I saw that, yeah, and that was I think I had Arizona going to like almost the Elite Eight, Final Four, and that it's garbage.
Yeah, I had them in the Elite Eight, but I had them losing to Alabama. But we've seen some good games so far. We've seen a couple of buzzer beaters. We're recording this on Sunday. So we just got done watching the Kentucky Kansas State game, which is probably one of the best ones of the day so far, or of the tournament, where it was back and forth. I think Kentucky had like 18 offensive rebounds to 3.
Yeah, it was,
and they still lost. Granted, they couldn't make a 3, but
right. And then their little Kansas State's little point guard, Noel.
Noel.
I mean, being 5'8", I mean, just an absolute baller. The guy's so quick with the handles and the passes he makes, and I mean, he's just a walking bucket. And then you put him on the line, I think he's shooting like 88%. I mean, the guy's unreal. Imagine if he was like 6'3", he'd be unstoppable.
Yeah.
But that guy's good.
Yeah, it's a first-year coach they're predicted to take last, and now they're in the Sweet 16, which
love it.
Great coaching hire by Gene Taylor.
Huge. I mean, done a heck of a job.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, right now I think it was halftime of the Michigan State Marquette game, but that's also looking to be a come down to the wire as well. And
right.
I think the one complaint I have about the NCAA tournament is that these Sunday games, they still start so late. They only do 2 right away, and then they just stagger it. They should just stagger it at the start and then do a couple at the end to where
because they got like 4 games starting in like within like an hour of each one, starting at like 4 o'clock. I think it's like, but back to back to back, it looks like.
Yeah, and games don't get over till if you're on the East Coast, which we're Mountain Time, so it's not that big of a deal.
We're okay.
But yeah, I mean they're not, it's midnight there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can't even watch the game. You know what I mean? You're like, well, I better go to bed about 9-10 o'clock, and then you got to see who won in the morning.
Yeah, you've got kids you got to work with on a daily basis.
I'm going to bed at 8 o'clock. You know what I mean? I need that nap.
You need that nap.
Yeah.
And then you probably need one in the morning.
Yep. I need one about noon.
Yeah. How's the school year going so far?
It's good. It's wish it would get nice out so we could go outside a little bit more, but it's going pretty good. It's fast. We only got 2 months left, and like just thinking about Class B being done, and that's always the last one of the year. It's like, well, by the time that finishes up, it's Easter, and then it's done. So it goes fast.
Yeah. Now, do you have any good stories that you can share? You don't have to say names.
Yeah.
Don't say any names here, but what are some good stories that you have as the life of a teacher?
Well, I mean, we always get quite a few random ones. I mean, every day you could really tell some different ones, but we have a cargo net at Jefferson Elementary, and I only let students go up to like a certain level. And it's probably about halfway up. And I remember a couple of years ago, there was a kid. He's like, "Well, I'm going to try and climb to the top." I'm like, "No, you can't." So I look back, and the kid he's still like halfway up. He's kind of around the mark where I told him to go. But like when I look back, he's kind of screaming, and I'm like, "Oh, what's going on? Did he fall?" He's hanging upside down with one foot stuck in the cargo net halfway up. So it's probably a good like 12 feet up in the air. He's dangling off one foot stuck in the cargo net. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'll come up there and help you. And he like gets himself out of it and he comes to the ground and he's shaking. And I was like, so are you going to go up that high again? He goes, absolutely not. It's like, good call, buddy. There's a reason we have rules.
Yeah. Now you're a gym teacher. How many dodgeballs have you thrown at kids' face?
Not a lot. We're kind of like outlawed to play dodgeball, but at the end of the year, we kind of let the fifth graders play a little bit of dodgeball.
You're part of the problem why the country's been so soft. You can't let kids play dodgeball anymore.
It's not my call, but I would love to play more dodgeball. That's
just a terrible excuse.
I know. Hey, but when we played back in the day in elementary school, Greg Bertelson, our PE teacher, man, he threw dodgeballs at us all the time. And look how we turned out all right.
We turned out all right. We had Mr. Kovacs throwing a few at us.
Oh, yeah.
And his had backspin on it, too.
Yeah, it had some heat behind it.
I remember when we were playing mat ball in gym once.
Yeah.
And he probably threw it from like one corner of the gym of the court to the other court and just smoked Goody. And all you see is Goody just fall down, just get knocked out on his ass. And he just lays there.
Yeah. He had some heat, man. I remember when he would bench press, remember that? He'd have double plates and be like, all right, if you can't bench, what was it? Like your weight plus like 45 pounds 20 times or something. I don't remember what it was, but he's like, then you're not strong. And he would just pump it out. And we're like,
he'd do like 50 reps at 225.
Yeah. And you're like, wow, this guy should be playing right now for us.
Yeah, well, that, and then he was also I believe he was a mixed martial artist too. Yeah, just someone you probably didn't want to get on his bad side.
No, absolutely not.
No, we were lucky. We had some good ones.
We did. We had some great teachers and great coaches too.
That put up with our shit too.
Oh yeah. I remember we'd be in weights class and Randy Gordon would be like, all right, Isaiah, you have to do 5 primaries before we leave. And I'd be like, all right, give me the stretch bands. I'll pretend we did it. And do the stretch bands. All right, we're going to go shower. It's time to get out of here.
That's true. It was, and now you're a teacher. Now you have to monitor that.
Yep. And I already know, like kids, I already know how all the stuff because we did it all. You know what I mean? So they'll be like, oh, I did that. Like, fine, just do what you need to do and let's get out of here.
That was always the funny part too, is it's like time really is a flat circle.
It is.
Problem child, and then you're the one that ends up a teacher.
You're right.
And then you just are there days where you think, yeah, I probably deserve this?
Yes, 100%. There are days I come home and I'm like, wow, I think I did that in elementary school. That was really dumb, but I still did it. You know what I mean? It's like full circle, man. Like, messing around with Shuri Rasha and Art all the time. It's like, man, now it's just karma.
When you sprayed her in the face watching the movie.
Yeah, sprayed her in the face with a squirt bottle. Yeah. Yeah. Hell yeah.
That one. There were plenty some that we can't share. Those are best that they stay off a microphone.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Mason Heath, we could talk about him for a couple hours, but yeah, we're not going to do that.
No. And now he has 2 kids and a third one on the way.
Yep.
And he understands.
Oh yeah, he knows exactly how it goes. He'll be in for it. When the kids grow up a little bit, he'll just get it again.
Now, when you're as far as teaching, is there like a kid that reminds you of a young Isiah Binstock?
Yeah, there's a couple of them. Yeah. Definitely.
What do they do with that?
Just complain.
Complain.
Yeah, complain, cry. If things don't go their way, like they're a little bit competitive, like we were too, and like, hey, sorry, dude, like that's the way it is, and they're like, well, I'm like, sorry, man, that's just life. Like you got to live with it. Sorry.
But yeah, and then now this is what your fourth year.
Yeah, that's my 4th year. Yeah.
Okay. Now, how is this year compared to previous years?
It's kind of weird because the first year I started was COVID. So we ended about this time this year.
That's right.
So
3 years ago now.
Yeah. And then the second year we were in hybrid. So we had half the kids. So last year was basically my first real year having all the full classes. And then this year too. But man, what I would just say, like, I feel like kids have actually gotten a little bit better over the years. Or maybe it's just me. I don't know. But it seems like the kids have gotten pretty good over the years. Like they're nice, and like maybe it's just coming full circle. You know what I mean? The kids are getting nicer and they're a lot more respectable, and they respect their teachers. It's getting good.
Well, I think part of it is because, like, last year was that first year of like where everything was felt like it was back to normal. There were, and there were no hybrids.
Right.
Everybody was in class. There were no masks.
Yep.
Kids were actually forced to get back into a routine of where
Yes.
they'd get up, go to school, everything. Where COVID, and then the hybrid year where kids, they parents still had to go to work, or they were working remote, where they weren't being probably as supervised as much as they should,
hmm
and realizing that they weren't the stuff they were getting away with, they probably aren't going to be able to do it while they're under complete
Right.
supervision.
Yep, absolutely. And when we were in hybrid too, I think our biggest class fit was like 12 kids, because they'd split them half and half
Yep.
or close to it. So like when it was hybrid though too, we were kind of on top of them. We could see pretty much everything what they were doing. So we were kind of on top of them, which kind of like calmed them down a little bit. And then we came back in like January, and then there was like 25 kids a class, and then it's kind of like hectic again. But I don't know, it's interesting to see how that has progressed, because now they're in that routine. They're doing much better, really.
Yeah. How did you want to be? What got you interested in becoming a teacher?
To be honest, I have no idea. It was kind of just like sports, because like you coached and you've done all that, and you were going to be a teacher too. But just kind of like the sports side of it, really what it came down to. I like working with kids, and it just was sports, honestly.
Yeah.
We love being around sports. We love coaching it. We love just seeing it, living that sports life. And that's what it came down to, was just sports.
Now, outside of track, what's your favorite sport?
Track is like way at the bottom. Like that's probably like the bare minimum right there. My favorite sport? Oh man, probably have to be football.
Football?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's got to be football, because you're probably football too, I would say.
Oh yeah.
it's
Well,
gotta be
you
football.
were a lot better at it than I was.
Yeah, but like, I
Um,
you still love football.
I
you know?
do. Well, you can't beat it. It's
Right.
just one of the greatest sports. I don't know how you describe it, but
Yep.
there's just something about it, that those memories that you make on the field or around it, and even just in general sports. Like,
Yep.
I mean, even when we get together now, we don't really talk much about the games that we played. We talk
Yep.
about the memories, the jokes we have in the
Right.
that happen in the locker room,
Yeah.
and which stays there.
Yeah. Right. Right. Locker room talk stays there.
But that's the fun part too, is especially with coaching, is where you're able to see those kids, and you see them from the start of the year
hmm
and grow and they get those light bulb moments.
Yep. Absolutely.
One of my favorite stories that I have is when I was coaching at the Dickinson Middle School. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
was coaching seventh grade. I was in charge of the seventh grade B team,
Okay.
and we were at a point where we were getting ready. We were going over offensive plays.
Yep.
And I wanted to do it to where it was like a game style situation,
Right.
where it's like, okay, receivers, you guys are by me. I had offensive line, quarterback, running backs, receivers, and then I'm like, okay, receivers, I want you by me. I'm gonna tell you a play. You guys are gonna go in and line up and do it. And we get through about like 4 or 5,
Mhm.
and I'm going, and I'm not really, because we're not passing in seventh
Yeah,
grade
not
B
a
junior
lot,
high
yeah.
football. It's very rare that it does.
Yeah. Fourth and long.
yeah, and if that, we were punting.
Yeah. That too. Yeah.
But then one of the receivers comes up to me. He's like, "Well, coach, when do I get to play?" I'm like, "Well, I've been telling you plays. Have you not been going in and lining up?" And they're like, "Oh, we were supposed to actually go in." And I was right away. I'm like, I was like mad, and then I realized, like, this isn't your fault. I guess I didn't explain this well enough. But
Yeah. Yeah.
you go in for the other receivers, they come off, and then we just keep rotating through.
Dude, that is coaching in a nutshell, and teaching, like especially elementary. If you don't say it and spell it out for them, they have no idea.
Yeah.
It's like you're herding cats half the time. And
Yeah.
You're like, okay, if we don't line up right here today, they don't have a clue what's going on. And you're like, oh, well, that's on me, I guess. Like, I can't be mad at you guys. That's me,
And especially at those ages where it's like, sometimes it's like the first time they've ever played, or sometimes
Right.
it's their first time they're doing real physical activity,
Yep.
where it's like you have to explain, because there's some kids, there's such a big gap
Yes.
a lot of times from like the highest to the lowest,
Yes.
where it's like you do have to truly explain it, because the ones that you do, they're probably the ones you have to worry about as far as like
Yeah.
making sure they're being a good teammate.
Right, right. Well, I just think of like elementary PE. Like we have the second grader who is an absolute stud. I mean, the kid is, I mean, he's probably the best athlete at Jefferson, maybe even right now, and he's a second grader. Okay, unbelievable athlete. And like this kid's like shooting wrist shots from half court when we're playing hockey. And the other kids like don't even know how to handle a puck or hold a stick. Some of them are holding the stick up by their shoulder. You know what I mean? They've got the the stick by their like arm. I don't even know. They don't know what they're doing. And this kid's shooting wrist shots from half court. I'm like, okay, we are miles apart. We don't know what's going on. You don't even know what a hockey stick is, and this kid's like he could be playing the NHL right now.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah, exactly. It is crazy. And then at that point too, like when you get into those games, you just hope that they have the patience and they're
not super mad about
yeah,
it. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And but and if they aren't that way, that means you probably got a good kid who's probably going to be a good lead. And who knows, maybe the ones that are the assholes at some point, they mature and grow up and grow out of that phase. But
you hope so.
That's always such a different thing. And looking back at it now, like when we were playing youth sports, and we didn't get it at the time, but like, and my dad, he was very vocal about like, well, everybody was going to play. Yes. I don't care about wins. I want kids to enjoy the game and have fun.
Right.
And I mean, parents probably didn't see it. I'm sure we didn't either.
Right. We didn't get it.
But now looking back at it is it's like you want those kids to stick out. You want them to have fun, because they'll go back, they'll remember that. And by the time they get to, 7th, 8th grade and then junior high, where they really, hit their growth spurts, puberty, different things like that, where who knows, by the time, that starts hitting, they could be, grow and be one of those better athletes, but they just don't have a desire to play it because they've just never gotten those opportunities. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things is just let your kids go out there, let them have fun.
Right.
As bad at like as competitive as I am, and you are too, it's like you almost don't want to keep score. You want to keep score, but like make sure that they understand that winning at that age isn't it's more so about developing. And then if you get coaches who are able to do that, I think you're going to develop that depth where kids are going to want to stay with it, because most sports, they're numbers games. It's who's going to be the deepest and how you can develop that talent.
Yep, absolutely. Thinking about that too. Like, I mean, when I was coaching junior high basketball, it's the same thing. Like, you want all those kids to play. You want them to enjoy the game, and like you said, even if they're not good or not going to be good, you still want them to like it, because if somebody does get hurt, or if what things pop up all the time. If you have like 7, 8 guys that are playing and they're playing at a high level, keep them. You got to keep them. And like you said, I think we probably had, I don't know, when we graduated, we probably had 7 or 8 seniors on our basketball team.
We had 9.
So that's the whole team. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it was 8 that we played Optimist with and Jesse.
Yeah. So and we grabbed one more thanks to recruiting. You know what I mean? So I'm glad, good thing we were private school, because otherwise we probably wouldn't have got that guy. Let's be honest. So. But it was great. We had 9 seniors, and like how many people can say they had 9 seniors on their basketball team?
Yeah,
very few.
And it felt like too that we all knew our role and we understood it, because like me, I sure as hell knew I wasn't going to play. I knew the most sports activity I was going to be was talking about them.
Yeah, right.
But I knew going into that year, it was like, well, I knew I wasn't going to play. So you know what? I'm just going to try to be the best cheerleader and teammate I could be. And that was kind of my goal, was do that, and tried my best, and it worked out. I got a trip to state out of it. And unfortunately, it didn't end the way we wanted it to, but it was still fun. Beating Beulah, was probably one of the funnest nights of our high school careers, which we're really opening the yearbook now.
Yeah. But like, I mean, if you think about it too, I was thinking about it yesterday, because Cody Nelson is, he's assistant coach. And I was like, we beat him when we were sophomores. And then we took 4th at state, which is still, very respectable. And then they went on to win the region, and then they went on to win the state championship. And then the next year we beat them, and then we choked in the first round, but we still took 5th. And like, just thinking about the region that we had, I mean, our region was stacked. Every year it was stacked. And when we were sophomores, I think there was 4 or 5 teams that were ranked in state that whole year, and it was, I mean, you just got to respect that. Region 7 was always kind of a powerhouse, and look at Beulah again this year. They probably should have went to the state championship. There's a lot of respect around Region 7, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, our junior year, I think at different time. Well, Beulah was always ranked. We
Yep.
were always ranked. Mott was up there.
Yep.
Heart River had a really good team. New England
was good too.
New England
Very
was
good.
really good. And even like Hazen, kind of nobody really knew. They came out of nowhere. They were the 2 seed in the district.
Yep.
That year, where Beulah was the 3, we were the 1, and then Beulah got hot.
Yeah.
And then they didn't lose after we beat them in the regular season.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, Hazen too. You never even thought about it, but like they had Stetson Carr, and then I think if I remember right, they had a big center, and then they had Cslack too. He was younger too, but I mean, they were stacked all the way across the board.
Yeah, and I mean, you could make an argument our senior year when we played Beulah, that was the state championship.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it felt like it.
And we treated it like it was.
Yeah.
But it was the region championship, and something live and learn from. I think Coach Grinsteiner had a good message after that game, is that if the worst thing in our life happens is losing the first round of a state championship, our life's pretty good.
Right. Because I mean, if you think about how many teams actually make it to state, like we think about New England when we played them when we were, I mean, yeah, we would have been sophomores, I think. Yeah. And Michael Mann hit that shot, but New England, I mean, they haven't made it for years and years and years. And that team that they had with Kane Hansen and Clarence and Nick Wolf, and like they were stacked. You know what I mean? Like, they never even made it to state, or even Trinity, like the year they had, Robbie Morey and Grinsteiner. They were stacked too, and they never made it. So for us to make it, I made it twice, and you made it once. That's an accomplishment, really.
Yeah, well, and you look back in the 2000s where Trinity made it 7 straight years.
That's ridiculous.
And there were definitely times where you probably look at the talent across, and they probably weren't the most talented team in the region, but they always seem to find a way to do it. And that just goes to the kids and their commitment to it, and just never being fazed by any adversity that strikes.
Right. I mean, you think of those years too. Hazen was and Bowman back in the day. Those teams were powerhouses too. And even Richardson had a couple of good teams back in the day. And Killdeer, with Austin Default, there were some good teams in that region, and they still are.
There's a lot of teams from Region 7. You look at, if they weren't playing in Region 7, if they would have been playing in probably any other region those years, they probably would have came out. They would have been playing in the region championship or in state, or winning it and going to state.
Absolutely. And probably doing pretty well in state too. You know what I mean? They probably wouldn't have went pretty far. I mean, honestly, you look at like even that Beulah team that we beat in the regional championship, like you said, if they were in another region, who knows? We might have even played them in state championship,
They were on a 39-game win streak before we beat them in the Region 7 championship.
Unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, because going back to their, that 2012 when they won in state championship, I mean, that team was stacked too. They're stacked every year.
Well, they beat 3 undefeated teams.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I remember their run. It was unbelievable watching them back in the day too.
Yeah, and then they looked dead in the water against Berthold with the Yale.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they were down 10 going into the fourth quarter or something like that. And then Cody Nelson gets hot and leads them back.
Yeah.
And then they find themselves in a state championship where they lost at home against 2 North Star in the regular season by like 20.
Yeah.
And then they end up winning on a last second shot.
That's crazy. Yeah. North Star too. I mean, you think of like Grant Lindahl and who would they have? They had those 2
Hagler, Grandi.
Yep, that's right. Daniel Grandi, and I think Joseph Hagler, was that right? I think Jake Hagler. Yep. I mean, I remember they were playing in the AAU team. I remember this. We were playing ECI, and then they had their eastern side, a AAU team, and it was like, I mean, they were stacked. But I mean, like our ECI team was stacked too. Like our upper team, it was like Jacob Volk, and then we had what's his name from Fargo Shanley, AJ Jacobson. I mean, like those were some battles too in AAU basketball. But then North Star had 3 studs every year, and then they beat us when we were sophomores to go to the state championship. Yep. Yeah, and they were an unbelievable team.
Yeah, I remember the Lindahl where it didn't matter where he was. We had guys in his face the whole time.
All day.
Didn't miss.
Yeah.
Did not miss.
Yeah. And when you're, is he 6'7"? I mean,
6'7".
When you release it from the back of your head at like, 9 feet, I mean, it's hard to do anything with that. It's like
he had a funky release too.
Yeah, he did. I mean, it was like way above his head. It was like a Dirk kind of shot. You know what I mean? And like, you're not going to even touch that ball. Get a hand in his face and maybe he'll miss.
That's how you defend some of those guys. Is
Yep.
you put a hand in their face, hope they miss.
Pretty much. It was
And-
like watching Carson Yale.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, he's 6'9" too. You put a hand in his face, but like, I mean, he's so lanky and long that like it doesn't really matter. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Unless you're like 6'10", 11, it doesn't really matter what
yeah.
you're doing.
Well, and they're the 6'11" guys in North Dakota are few and far between.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But switching gears here now.
Yep.
Now I see you have a Raiders shirt on, so
Yep.
show the camera so we all see. Oh yeah, look at that.
Yeah, oh yeah. It's
Yeah.
fancy. Brand new from Vegas.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Well, now they had a little bit of a rough year now.
Yeah. Little bit.
Little bit. So what do you want to see from the Raiders this year where you don't have to call their headquarters to complain?
Boy,
Can
where
you
do I
can you
start?
take us through this about tell us a story?
Yeah,
of,
I can tell you a story.
What made you want to call the Raiders headquarters to complain about the Raiders play?
So I think it was probably about week 12 or 13. And it was Thursday Night Football, and the Raiders were playing the Rams, and the Rams just picked up Baker Mayfield. I think he was there for 2 or 3 days. I'm like, okay, Raiders are up by, I think it was about 16 points. I'm in the third quarter, and my wife goes, all right, I'm going to bed. It's over. I'm like, don't you ever say that. I know better. I know the Raiders. Don't you ever say that. So I'm watching the game, and, time goes by, and Baker's throwing a couple passes. The Raiders are starting to, Josh McDaniels, let's just run the ball out, okay, which is understandable. And they keep creeping back and creeping back. Fourth quarter rolls around. The Rams end up winning on I don't even remember. I think it was like a last second touchdown or something that the Raiders, of course, gave up because they're terrible. And I was like, all right, I've had enough. I've had enough. I'm screaming at the TV. My wife's sleeping. The baby's sleeping.
Did you wake the baby up?
No. I screamed loud enough that nobody woke up though. So I've had it. Go into the garage, grab my cell phone out, and I'm like, I've had enough. I'm on the phone. I call Allegiant Stadium. My nose is bleeding profusely because I'm literally, my blood pressure is probably through the roof right now, screaming. I'm on the phone with Allegiant Stadium. Some lady that picks up the line, she's like, oh, season ticket holders, press 2. Okay, so I press 2. Hi, how are you this evening? I'm terrible. I can't take this anymore. I have been a Raiders fan my whole life. You guys are doing nothing but losing games. I was like, give me Mark Davis's number right now. I've had enough. Oh, well, we can't. No, give it to me right now. Okay. Well, I was like, all right, just hang up. And then about 5 minutes later, I'm still pissed off. My nose is bleeding. I call them again. Season ticket holders, press 2. I'm sure they saw it was my number, so they didn't answer this time. It went to voicemail. And I was like, this is Isiah Binstock from North Dakota. I've had enough. I've had this Raiders sticker on the back of my car for 15 years. I'm going to tear it off tomorrow. Here's my cell phone number. Call me. I'll be your next head coach. And I hung up. I've had enough.
Did they ever call back?
No.
No?
Not a
What?
chance.
I can't believe that.
Yep. So when I went down to Vegas, I was hoping to just knock on the door and Mark Davis would answer, but he never did.
No. Did you go check out the stadium while you were down there?
No, I couldn't because it was Super Bowl, and they were
Oh.
having some sort of Super Bowl party inside, so I was off limits. So
No.
I was thinking about breaking in, but
Yeah.
Okay.
What team do you hate more, the Chiefs or the Broncos?
Chiefs by
Chiefs.
far.
Okay.
I actually like Patrick Mahomes. Love Andy Reid. The guy's a great coach. I mean, you can't argue with greatness, right?
No, you can't.
But Travis Kelce, I can't get behind him, man. The guy's great, but I can't get behind him. I just don't like him. I don't like him.
No, I used to not be a fan of him, and then I listened to his New Heights pod with him and his brother.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, okay, I kind of want to hang out with those guys.
I mean, it'd be cool to hang out with them. I like Jason Kelce. I think that guy's awesome, man. And the stuff he wears to games, unbelievable.
And I'm stuck kind of where you are with Travis Kelce. Is it's like I can't really like him because he plays for the Eagles.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But it's like he just seems like a good, down to earth, relatable guy.
I mean,
guy that we could invite in here and we could drink 15 beers together.
I would
with him.
love to. Yeah. Anytime you want to hit me up, we'll be ready.
Yeah, yeah. This is our invitation to join the do a little bit of a collab between the New Heights Pod and Conversation Mondays.
Heck yeah, we'll do that all day long.
So how do you think Jimmy G's going to work out this year?
Well, I was kind of looking at some of his stats. His stats are a little bit better than Derek Carr's, which okay. I mean, I didn't mind Derek Carr, but anyways, I mean, looking at his stats, he doesn't throw the deep ball. And that Derek Carr, that was half his career was the deep ball. I swear it's 3rd and short, 3rd and 1. All right, air it out every time. He was airing it out, and I'm like, dude, you need 3 yards. Like you could have ran probably, or even like did a little, pass to the sideline. You could have had it. So I don't know. I'm skeptical. We'll see what happens. You know what I mean? And like it seems like Jimmy G is hurt almost like every single year. So I feel like he hasn't had like a real great like chance almost. That's just how I feel. But I feel like if he's healthy, they'll do okay.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll make the playoffs because they're coming from the AFC West, and you got the Chargers and the Chiefs and the Broncos. I, I don't think they'll make it out. I don't think they'll make wild card, but I think they'll do okay.
Yeah. Well, the thing that they have on their side that they didn't have this year is they were in a bunch of one possession games
Yep.
where in 2021 they found ways to pull it out.
Right.
This year, and usually it's the kind of the law of equilibrium. I think that's what it's called.
Mm.
I don't know, probably should have paid attention whatever class they teach that in, but like, they talk about the law of averages where,
Mhm.
1 year you win a lot of one possession games and next year you tends to go the other way where you
Yep.
you
The
lose
Minnesota
them.
Vikings.
Yeah.
Yeah. We know them.
Yeah. we and a lot of fans too of them.
Oh yeah. Sadly.
But so there's that. I think also Jimmy G being in Josh McDaniel's system.
Yeah.
I think that also helps where Jimmy G's gonna have a lookout more for the situational awareness of just, we need 3 yards.
Right.
We just take what they give us. We don't
Yep.
need to go for the home run every play.
Yeah.
And they got a good running back with Josh Jacobs. And every year too, there is about 6 to 8 new playoff teams.
Right.
And the Raiders are right there. Their roster isn't terrible between Max Crosby. I think Chandler Jones is coming back, isn't he?
It sounds like it.
Okay. Yeah, they've got 2 good pass rushers.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a good running game in Josh Jacobs. Darren Waller is gone. But
Yep.
what do you think about that trade?
I don't hate it. Like I was telling you earlier, I was saying I really don't hate it because, I mean, he's 31 years old. He's been hurt quite a bit. He's a great athlete though. I mean, great. He's kind of like that Travis Kelce type. You know what I mean? He kind of creates his own space. Not like a super great blocker, but he's decent enough that he can get by. But he's always hurt. They paid him a lot of money, so they need to open up some cap space. I don't hate it. You know what I mean? And Foster Moreau has always been like that guy. He's quiet, but he makes good blocks. He makes the right plays. He's always in the right spot at the right time. I don't hate the Darren Waller trade. I don't.
Yeah. Well, and they got solid receivers.
Yep.
Got to shore up that offensive line. I think they need a left tackle.
Yes.
Which I think they could find somebody.
I think so. Yep.
And then their biggest question mark on their defense has been a question mark for the last 30 years.
Oh, every year. Secondary's awful every year.
But if they could get at least like kind of that surefire number one corner, I think they're going to be. I think that gives them at least where they can lock down one side of the field.
Right. And that they have Denzel Perryman too in the middle. Like, you know what I mean? He's a good run stopper and he's physical. I mean, he's not the biggest guy, but I mean, he plays well. But like you said, they need that secondary. They've been struggling that for years, and they thought Jonathan Abram was going to be that guy. He's a heavy hitter, but like in coverage, nah, he wasn't that guy.
And he's too small. Where he got hurt,
Right.
he just he would leave himself out to dry, and
yes,
where he would go for hits that he didn't need to, and
right.
And I think that's part of the safety mentality where the tackling is awful, where they don't wrap up. They just try to go for a big hit, lead with their shoulder, and then you completely whiff.
That was him 100%. I was hoping that because Harrison Smith, he did take that big pay cut. And I was kind of hoping, I was like, man, if they release him, that would be a nice pickup. You know what I mean? Because he's that veteran Pro Bowl type guy. He's starting to play a little bit smarter. Granted, he's probably not as quick as what he used to be, but like that would have been a huge pickup. I was kind of hoping for that, but yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully they can get another tight end in the draft too. It looks like there's a lot of great tight ends this year coming out of college. So hopefully grab a tight end and beef up the line a little bit and grab somebody in the secondary. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. What do you have as far as what's your fondest Raider memory that you have of growing up?
Man.
I know there hasn't been a lot. I think your probably favorite memories are when we were about 5 or 6.
Yeah, probably back in the day. Yeah. Well, I remember when they made it to the Super Bowl and then Tampa Bay beat them, and I cried for about 2 hours when I was probably like 8. I don't even remember. It was so long ago. But man, my fondest memory. I really liked the last game they played in the Coliseum. That was pretty cool. They didn't make the playoffs or anything, but they won that game, and I remember Charles Woodson being on the field. Your old buddy
Oh yeah,
Michigan
go
boy.
blue.
Yep. And yeah, I just remember like Charles Woodson walking off the field in the old black hole, and I don't know, that was one of like the coolest games I remember.
And have you been to a game? Were you able to go to a game at the Coliseum in Oakland?
No, I wish.
No.
I wish. You know what? The last Raider game I was at was actually a preseason game when they went to Minnesota and they were playing in the Minnesota Gophers, the outdoor game. Yeah,
okay.
TCF when they were building the new U.S. Bank Stadium. I haven't seen the Raiders in a couple of years, but now that they're in Vegas, that's the plan. Go down next year. That's the plan.
Even tickets are ridiculous. Like they have like the highest ticket expenses for in the NFL, but yeah, definitely would be a fun. The Super Bowl is going to be there this year.
That's right. Yeah.
How sad would that make you if the Chiefs win it in their building again?
Probably have to call up the U.S. or Allegiant Stadium again and chew them out. Be like, well, that's it. We've had enough. And it's funny towards the end of the year, like there was so many less Raiders fans, and it was starting to be like a Rams thing. You know what I mean? Where like it seemed like there were more fans from the opposite team, from the visiting team, than there were for the Raiders. You know what I mean? It started to get to that point. It was bad.
Yeah. Did you like the move to Vegas, or were you gonna wish they would have stuck in Oakland?
I mean, like I wish Oakland had a football. You know what I mean? Like Oakland's just like that old like mentality, like that like hardcore punch you in the mouth kind of mentality, like the old Raiders. You know what I mean? And like now that's with the move to Vegas, it's not that same feeling. I feel like it's not the black hole. You know what I mean? But for us, I mean, shoot, we can go down there straight flight from Bismarck. So I like that, but it's not the same feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It seems like it's more of a tourist destination. But I think, and you look at like the Raiders history, which like Al Davis, I think most of our memories of him are not great, but you look and you actually go like do a deep dive. You watch like the A Football Life of him, or when they did the 30 for 30 on him and
Pete Rozelle.
Yeah, Pete Rozelle. Yeah. Like how much of an impact that Al had on the game. Like he was kind of the inspiration for the combine. Yeah. Because he wanted to see guys see what they ran in the underwear Olympics, and he always valued that speed and burn that go for it mentality.
Yep. Yeah, he was like the one who kind of like him and Daryl LaMonica back in the day with that deep ball passing. You know what I mean? Like that's why they got Henry Ruggs, was kind of like they saw his 40 and saw how quick he was. I mean, granted, if he was still in the NFL, he still would have been, he was becoming a really good player. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then he just, that happened. And, but yeah, that's what Al Davis was all about speed and and the physicality, that like punch you in the mouth, don't care what you say kind of thing, and that's really kind of lost its touch over the years. That's why they picked up Jonathan Abram, as you know. He was kind of like that, like punch you in the mouth safety that like, he kind of played that old school football.
That one safety that I can't remember who it was, said they weren't going to take the field because the Steelers weren't going to take the field if he was playing. Yeah, tried to get him kicked out of the league.
I can't remember if it was Lester Hayes or who it was, but that was like the same thing. And he kind of played like that, but he just wasn't good in coverage. He would like that.
He was too small.
Yes, that too.
He wasn't fast enough to be a corner, and he wasn't big enough to be a safety.
Right, exactly. And I mean, he, like you said, he's still a great player, but he's not like what he was expected to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, football, who knows? I mean, it's a 365, so we're going to see some exciting stuff as the draft approaches.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. We got anything else we want to talk about?
Cowboys, huh?
Oh, we could. Yeah. Well,
the Cowboys.
They just traded for Brandon Cooks.
I saw that. Yeah.
I do like that. They were missing a third receiver.
Yep.
And Cooks gets that. Biggest concern with me is hopefully he's able to stay on the field.
Agreed.
But I mean, when he's on there, he's productive.
Yep.
I mean, most places he would go to, he'd be top one or two receiver. Yeah. He was with the Texans.
Right.
But now he's going to be asked to be behind CeeDee Lamb, and I guess him and Gallup will probably battle it out. Both are injury concerns. I'd like to see him add another one.
Yeah.
But that, and then trading for Stephon Gilmore.
Oh yeah.
I really like that trade.
I do too. Yeah.
Because Gilmore isn't the risk taker that Diggs is.
Right.
Which you can still, with Diggs, he can still be that aggressive player.
Mm-hmm.
And where Gilmore is still going to be able to handle his, and he's a surefire opposite corner where, last year they had so many injuries and the guys they had are more so slot guys, whether it be Jordan Lewis or Anthony Brown.
Yep.
And then after that, I mean, who cares? You can't really expect much because they aren't great.
Right.
But, I mean, they've got Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence. They brought back Leighton Vander Esch, too, who is kind of solidifies kind of the leader of the defense, gets everybody in the right spots. I'd like to see him, and something they just haven't done is I'd like to see him go and get a big D tackle that can just eat up blocks and stop the run.
Right.
And build it similar to like what a Philly defense is where they have a plethora of pass rushers.
Right.
And now that they traded for Gilmore, traded for Cooks,
mm-hmm.
I wouldn't mind seeing them go try to get another pass rusher at that spot because you can never have too many.
Agreed. Right. You're right. Because, and I mean, you think of even like the 49ers. I mean, look at their defensive line. Like Nick Bosa, like he'll come off of quite a bit of times just so he can like rest up and get, fresh. Yeah. Like, and if the Cowboys get something like that too, and they're all fresh and they're ready to roll and you get Micah Parsons a little bit more room, I mean, heck, they're going to be great.
Well, that, and you don't have to have him playing D end the whole time because I don't think he's big enough to play a D end. It's almost like they were using him like the Packers used Clay Matthews, where he's not big enough to be on the D end.
Right. Play him outside linebacker a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Similar to what the Vikings did with Anthony Barr, where, almost have it like situationally.
Yep.
Where they can move him inside or move him, bring him down on obvious passing situations, just let him go. But I'd like to see him do that. The one that I really wish they would have gone after was tried to go after and sign Ndamukong Suh in mid-season, but Eagles got him. And it's another team within your own division of guys that have just a bevy of pass rushers.
Right. That NFC is just stacked. That defense, I mean, like you look across the board in the NFC, all the defenses are insane. Yeah. I mean, those top 4 or 5 teams, defenses are great. And
right now, if you look at the NFC, it's wide open. Like this is the year. Yeah. This is the year to go for it.
Yep.
And go get a little bit of risky, something the Cowboys haven't done.
Right.
To go after and get guys that are going to get you over that hump where they haven't been to an NFC Championship game since '96.
Dang. Can't believe it's been that long. And they're a good team. You know what I mean? They're a good team. They could, if they keep this going, they could get there this year. I would hope so. I wouldn't mind seeing the Cowboys go Super Bowl. I don't want to win a Super Bowl. But
they beat the Chiefs though.
Yeah, okay, then I'd take it. But I mean, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean the talent's there. I've come around to Mike McCarthy as the head coach because the previous 10 years under Jason Garrett, they never went to back-to-back playoffs. This year, these years they have.
Yep.
And I think McCarthy calling the plays. I like that. He's got a giant play sheet.
Look like Andy Reid out there.
Yeah. And what's he doing? And hopefully he's actually able to call a game and not just call plays, which was kind of my biggest critique with Kellen Moore.
Yep.
Also probably the reason why Zeke isn't in a Cowboys uniform still.
Could be.
Because I'm not huge on paying running backs big money. And if you're going to pay them, they better be useful out of the backfield, catching the ball.
Right.
And Zeke, early on in his career, that when they used him as a pass catcher, he was really good with catching the ball. But once he got that contract, they just used him in between the tackles and he just wore down.
Yep, agreed.
And so I don't know. I think even I don't think they'll draft a running back. I'm not really huge on drafting running backs in the first round either.
Right.
Because there's so many. Same thing with receivers. It's just every draft is just always seems to have a bevy of receivers, and it's just they're all just deep classes where you can get them in hitting those 4th, 5th rounds.
Right. I totally agree. And especially like the Cowboys too. Like you're kind of, their run game has always been really good over the past few years. And now that you have Tony Pollard too, I know he got hurt at the end there, but man, that guy's a stud. The guy's good. I would love, any team that would have Tony Pollard, he'd run it all day long. You know what I mean? But that they had Zeke as a backup too, it was nice to have him. Switch him in and out so much. Keep him fresh and stuff. But yeah, now with Zeke gone, I'm not sure what's going to happen. Tony Pollard getting all those touches. Or...
I don't like that. He wouldn't be. I think the reason why he was so good was because Zeke was the one that was taking the pounding in between. Where Pollard, he was more outside and
Right.
outside running and using him out of the backfield, where Zeke just, I mean, he got too big and they never utilized his speed on the outside and then he ended up losing it because he just couldn't stay healthy, got hurt, and just that's just the nature of football and playing that position.
Yep. And then they moved him to center for one play, and then you saw how that went.
Yeah, that was his last play in a Cowboys uniform.
What a bad way to go out, man. Dude.
And that's the other thing too is with Dak, it's less is more.
Yeah.
With him is just you don't need him to be a superhero. Just manage the game, move the sticks, get touchdowns, and make the easy play. It's something that, I mean, even, we've been hearing for however long. I think I can still hear Grinsteiner in my ears at times. Make the easy play.
Yep. Keep it simple, stupid. I still remember that. Yep. But, and that's the Cowboys, because like Dak Prescott, he's kind of like that Derek Carr range. You know what I mean? Like, he can be really good, but he's never gonna he's not that Tom Brady. He's not gonna take over the game and make it his game. He'll do well. He'll carry you pretty far, but he's not like that guy.
Yeah, well, and in the NFC, it's wide open, and the Cowboys have a Super Bowl caliber defense. Agreed. I believe that.
Oh, I totally agree.
So just don't turn the ball over, and they're gonna be fine. I think I don't want to use it right away, but as that season progresses, utilize his running ability more too.
Agreed.
Where you can have some design runs, especially as the stakes get a little bit higher in the games, where you can go and use him because it's just an added dimension to the running game.
Right. Do a little play action with him. Let him run a little bit. Get him out in space. Yeah, and I remember looking at his stats because he was hurt for 5 games?
Yeah, and he still led the NFL in interceptions.
In picks? I couldn't believe it. I was looking, it was 22 picks, and it was week 15, and I was like, wait a minute, how is he leading the league in picks? And he didn't play for 5 games. How is that? I mean, if you just take care of the ball, they're going to go far.
Well, that was part of the Kellen Moore play calling too, where it was more so go for it plays.
Yeah.
And you don't need to do it, especially with that defense. I think that's why Mike McCarthy made the decision that he's, we have this championship caliber defense. I'm going to call the plays. We're going to be more short passes.
Yes.
Check downs, things like that. And then at some point, then take your shot. Be very precise and pick when you want to go deep, not just calling it just for the sake of calling it.
Agreed. And one thing I really liked too, and Mike McCarthy started taking over, is that they were starting to get CD Lamb the ball a little bit sooner. They did a couple reverses, and they got him on short passes. Go do a couple slants. Just get him the ball. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a 15-yard pass. Get him short passes. Get your playmakers the ball,
especially in the playoff games.
Yes, get them the ball. You look at the Chiefs. You know what I mean? When they had Tyreek Hill, you could just throw him a 5-yard slant. He creates his own space. He's quick enough, kind of like CD Lamb. Just get him the ball. He'll do things,
Exactly. So, would be more football that, we're just going to talk about. I can't not talk about it.
I know, right? You got to keep going.
Even with everything else. But do you have a prediction of who's going to win it all this year for the college basketball?
Oh, basketball.
NCAA tournament?
I picked UCLA. I know you said that a couple of their studs are hurt. I'm still going to roll with UCLA, but I do think now, looking at it, I would not be shocked to see Alabama end up winning it. The way that they've been playing, and with all that controversy behind it, I could see them winning it. I really could.
Yeah, they're gonna shoot. They're gonna shoot for it.
Yeah, they'll be shooting something.
But let's see here. What do we want to talk about non-sports related before we wrap this up? Do we gotta? What would be a good thing to discuss?
Man, I don't know. That's tough. I don't really talk anything else besides.
I know. I know.
My wife gets real sick of it too. So
yeah.
I don't know. I was gonna say though, if I'm picking Super Bowl though, I'm gonna say the 49ers.
Ooh.
I am.
Who's leading them at quarterback?
That's a great question. I don't know. I think they're gonna put Brock Purdy back in. I think Trey Lance is gonna sit the pine a little bit.
Ooh.
I do. I don't know if Trey Lance is. I love Trey Lance, not NDSU boy, but I feel like they haven't had enough time with him. He's been hurt, and he's still young, and Brock Purdy's kind of showing up. And, like, to be honest, you could play quarterback for the 49ers. Let's be honest. With that lefty arm,
Oh,
my
yeah.
goodness.
I was
don't know.
throwing dots in practice one day when
Were you?
Oh, yeah.
Bury that puppy, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, well, no. It was not bury that puppy.
Get him open.
Yeah.
Create space.
Yeah, bury that puppy. That was well, I mean, we'll get to see that. You'll get to see that on Wednesday when we play City League.
Oh yeah. Our City League team is 9 out of 10 bad.
Yeah. That's for sure. But I thought of something now.
What you got?
What is before, and we'll wrap this up here. What's your favorite movie?
My favorite. Oh my gosh. I have like 5. That's tough, man. I don't even know. Probably Shawshank Redemption's up there.
Ooh, okay.
That's a classic, and like, man, any like Morgan Freeman movies, I love them.
Yeah.
Just his voice is just like
Voice of
awesome,
God.
dude. He's the best. He's the best.
Okay. Do you have a favorite comedy?
I love Semi-Pro.
Semi-Pro.
Jackie Moon, and I love that movie, man. That movie cracks me up.
That is a good one. Man. My favorite movie. Ooh, I don't know. I think it goes in different genres.
Yeah.
So because, like, I think I have a favorite comedy. I have a favorite action.
Sports one too.
Sports one, yeah. You have a favorite sports one?
Oh man, I mean, like, We Are Marshall's a classic. Remember the Titans probably is like top 2. But I mean, like, all the 30 for 30s. Like, there's like no special one. I mean, like, man, I don't know.
The Last Dance, I think, is a classic.
That's a good one, too.
You can't go wrong with that one. Was probably the best one.
That was good.
Like, I'll still go back and watch that one.
Yes.
The Winning Time.
Winning Time with Reggie Miller.
Yep.
That's a classic too. I love that with the Spike Lee, man. That one's good.
Yep. What else? Some other.
The Chicago Cubs one, the guy who caught the ball.
Yep.
That's a good one too. That one's crazy.
There's plenty more coming down the pipe. I can't wait for some new ones. I got to watch the Ravens one.
Oh, but Bo Jackson, Bo Jackson.
Yeah, you don't know Bo.
That's probably my favorite one, to be honest. That's a good one.
The Straight Outta LA. Did you see that one? Of course.
Oh yeah, I gotta watch that.
Even the Al Davis, Pete Rozelle one. That was a really good one.
That is good. But I mean, there's so many. I can't name one specific one.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think. So you said, did you say a favorite movie or?
I'll say Shawshank Redemption.
Sports movie.
Sports movie. Man, that's tough. I like The Longest Yard too. That's a classic. Oh, Adam Sandler.
That is a good one. Burt Reynolds.
Yeah.
Swatowski.
Yeah, Swatowski. Bench pressing the whole like bleachers with like 10 guys on it. Love that.
But okay, yeah, my favorite sports movie. Ooh, and I'd probably almost have to go. I think Miracle.
Oh, that's a good
great
one too.
one.
That's top 3 for sure. I mean, The Miracle on Ice. Yeah, that's the best. That's a good one too. You can't go wrong with it.
Beating commies.
Yeah, all right.
Of course, kicking their ass.
Love that. Oh, and I was gonna say, so I saw this on Barstool the other day. What's your favorite? I'm sure you saw this too. What's your favorite food to eat like during a basketball game?
During a basketball game?
Yep. Like, let's say the concessions are open. You got to go down. You got to go get something to eat. What are you eating?
Ooh. You can't go wrong with a taco in a bag.
Yeah. That's what.
That I suppose this is a good way to end our curveball of the week. Is favorite concession food is I think you can't go wrong with a taco in a bag.
It's classic.
Now what are you putting on it? Are you putting salsa on it?
I'll put a little salsa sour cream, and if I can find some jalapenos, I'll throw a couple of jalapenos on there too.
Gives it that nice kick.
Yep. Yeah, oh yeah. With like a mellow yellow. Sorry.
Oh, boo.
But if we're talking Pepsi, it's got to be a Mountain Dew then.
Yeah, of course. And then do you like it with regular tortilla chips, or do you got to go with the Doritos?
Doritos. Okay. I mean, all day long. I mean, who puts regular tortilla chips on there?
I have found something different though. That's really good. Is you get chili.
Okay.
And then you have chili cheese, like the chili cheese Fritos.
Yeah.
And then you put that in, and then like shredded cheese, nacho cheese, some onions, some diced jalapenos, not like the pickled ones, but like the fresh ones.
Oh yeah, those are good, man.
And then hot sauce.
Yeah.
And shredded cheese.
Ooh,
that's really good.
Delicious.
It is.
I have to go try me some of that.
Yeah. That is really good. But now, what do you got for a? If you're at a basketball game, what's your go-to concessions?
Yesterday I had a bacon cheeseburger, but I put a few jalapenos on it.
Ooh, I gave it a little kick.
Yeah, give it a little kick, a little ketchup.
Felt that later.
Probably.
Probably.
Oh yeah. But you know what's really good though is a nice like pretzel. You know what I mean? Pretzel with nacho cheese. Oh my goodness.
Now are we? Is it the pizza stuffed pretzels?
Just like like those are good too, but sometimes a little soggy.
Yeah.
So I mean, like just a regular pretzel's good.
Okay.
With the just dip in nacho cheese.
Do you have it salted or unsalted?
Salted.
Gotta have
a little salt on it. Salt on it. Salt or die, man. There's no in between.
But all right, well, this was fun. We might have to come back and revisit this, and maybe we do a softball midway season point and discuss how our season's going. Hopefully, it's going a little bit better than baseball or basketball.
Oh God, it can't be as bad anyway. So
yeah. But that's it for this week's episode of Conversation Monday. Go check us out on all our social medias. Isiah is Twitterless, so he doesn't have any social medias, but I guess that means he's going to have to come back on.
We got no other option.
So 3 Guys Talking Ball on Facebook page, and then on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, 3GTV Podcast will be posting content as well. Then go check out our regular Thursday with 3 Guys Talking Ball with Grant and Ethan. They'll be back with me, and we'll be breaking down the NCAA tournament some more and whatever else we end up talking about, which is usually the way it goes. So with that wraps up episode 2 of Conversation Monday, and we'll talk to you next time.